Welcome back to Scrapbooking 101 with Art and Creative Studio, where today we're talking about how to choose a color palette to go with your scrapbook pages. So, color plays a really important role in scrapbooking, and the colors you choose can evoke emotion and really help to tell the story of your photos. And they can also set the mood of your page, too. So, you can think about, for example, how bright colors can feel energetic and soft pastels bring a sense of calm. Now, to look at this in even more detail, we can grab a color wheel and talk a little bit about the basics of color theory. Now, this can really help us to understand why certain colors work with the colors in our photos and why certain colors work well with one another. Now, to begin, we can look at our primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Your primary colors are going to be your red, blue, and yellow. Secondary colors are made by mixing two primary colors to give you green, orange, and purple. And your tertiary colors are created by mixing a primary and a secondary color. So, for example, mixing the primary blue with the secondary color of green to give you blue green. Warm colors on the color wheel. You can see here your reds, yellows, and oranges. And these all bring a sense of energy and warmth or excitement. So these colors are perfect for birthdays, celebrations, and summer or autumn themed pages. On the other side of the color wheel, you have your cool colors, purples, blues, and greens. These colors evoke a sense of calm, relaxation, and they also work beautifully for winter pages. Then we have neutral colors, beige, white, black, and gray. These create balance and give a classic, timeless look, and they are also perfect for matting your photos. So, how can you combine your colors on a layout? Well, there are a couple of design principles to keep in mind. One of my favorite color combinations is a monochromatic color combination, meaning different shades of one color. So, for example, various shades of blue, which I've pulled here. And monochromatic colors create a sense of harmony, and they're also really easy to use. Then we have complementary colors. These are opposites on the color wheel. So, for example, a yellow and purple, or perhaps one that's a little bit more familiar, red and green. So, complementary colors being opposites are going to be high contrast and they're also visually interesting. Analogous colors are another color combination that are really easy to work together. So these are the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. For example, red, orange, and yellow. And these just go together really beautifully. It's a subtle and natural color combination. And then we have the triadic color combination, which is the three colors evenly spaced on the color wheel. So red, blue, and yellow are what I've pulled here. And you can see that these are playful and energetic. Again, some nice sense of contrast and mood setting there. So when you're mixing your papers with your photos, this is where you really get a chance to play. This can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it's also a lot of fun. Now, when I'm starting with my photo, I like to pull out different colors from the photo and use that as my starting point. So, for example, with this picture, I've got about equal measures of sand and sky. So I could go with a blue or a brown. Let's take a look at how those look. I'll bring in a blue, and you can see that that will work really nicely with my photo. I could also choose a brown. Take a look at how that will look. So again, on the blue or on the brown. Of course, I can use both of them together too. I might decide to pair the two of them together. I also like to work in some contrast. So for example, I've got this white photo mat. I could also bring in a black neutral and perhaps use that as another mat and see how that looks or against the blue. Now, when you're working with your photos, and just depending on how many colors you have in your photo, you may want to give yourself a little bit of time and do some experimentation. So for example, with this photo, I've got a couple of different colors that I could go for here. Let's see what it looks like on pink. And you can see that brings out the color of that gelato. But what about the blue? That's going to look different. And then maybe a green will look even more different, bringing out some of the green and the trees in the background there. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm working with my photos and I'm playing with all of the different color combinations is to take photos as I go along. So I may say, for example, with this picture of shadow, I might pick a black cardstock to coordinate with the color of her fur. Or maybe I want to go for something more high contrast here. Or perhaps I want to combine the two of them or go for a completely different color and pick up some of the blue in the background. So again, some different options there. And what I like to do then is just grab my phone and take a photo of each of those color combinations and see which one I like best, because sometimes a different perspective gives you better insight into those color combinations. Now, my final tip is to trust your instincts. So, for example, with this page, I pulled these pattern papers, this beautiful soft tangerine, and then this collage pattern paper that's got that same tangerine color, as well as some hints of white and brown in there as well, because I thought they worked beautifully with the colors in my photo, but also helped to create a sense of summertime with those nice warm shades, and then also pulling in some contrasting elements to pick up the greens in the background of the photo as well. So sometimes a certain color palette just appeals to you or just feels right. And in that case, it's probably a good bet for your layout. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will catch you again for even more Scrapbooking 101.